Hello, welcome to our first PennLive Penn State Facebook chat of the year. I'm Greg Pickle checking in with you on a Thursday. It's a busy time of year. The contact period for recruiting has just gotten underway. We're 20 days to National Signing Day 2017. Some interesting news and notes out there, so we'll start with that. Tyjon Lindsey, a kid that was committed to Ohio State, a 4-star on some services, a 5-star on other services. This kid decommitted from Ohio State. We have our sister site, Cleveland.com, Ari Wasserman, and those guys do a great job. Ari's out in Las Vegas. He had a chance to catch up with Tyjon, and he's not really saying why he decommitted. And from the looks of things, Ohio State was pretty surprised by his decision to decommit as well. And Penn State wasted no time giving him an offer. Josh Gaddis, the receivers coach, who's been here since James Franklin got here, of course, he jumped right into the mix, and he was able to offer him, and we'll see if he decides to visit. You know, obviously he has 4, it appears, official visits left. That means Penn State can pay to bring him to campus sometime between now and January 30th. I'm sure they're going to want to do that, but of course wanting to do that and actually getting a kid to fly from Las Vegas to University Park in January can sometimes be a challenge, but we'll have to wait and see. At this point in time anyway, it appears that Penn State is on the outside looking in. Nebraska is sort of the school to watch there, and we'll see what happens. So we'll wait for some questions. If not, we'll just chat about a couple other recruiting things. 20 days to signing day. Penn State has 18 commitments at this point in time, and they probably have room for about 2 more. I think that's what you're looking at when you break it all down and consider that they didn't really lose a whole lot. You know, the senior class was small. That group was planned for, of course, well before this point in time. And now you have a couple guys, Chris Godwin and Garrett Sickels, that have left for the NFL draft. So that opens up a little bit of space, not a lot. Penn State's about close to being full. The scholarship table, of course. And, you know, one of the things we covered in our 20 days from signing days post this morning is that Penn State, even though, you know, you might think they were able to count guys back because they've done that in the past, it's not as relevant anymore because they have 85 now as the number to contend with. James Franklin has spoken often about the fact that once you hit that 25, or the 85 number rather, and they're back at it now, you can count forward, backwards, upwards, up, down. It doesn't matter because 25 is the limit for the year. Penn State's not going to get there this year. And even if they could, you know, even if they had enough commits to kids that wanted to come here, they'd still be well over that 85 mark. And that's really what you're focused on at the end of the day. So 85 is the limit. Penn State's close to that. They have room for maybe 2 more. And we talked about it. You know, it's interesting when you look at how they're going to fill that space. What do you look for? You know, with a receiver, if you're offering Tyjon Lindsey, if you're trying to get Mark Webb, the Georgia commit, the Archbishop Wood 4-star to visit campus. Remember, he told PennLive after the state title game, the PWA state title game in Hershey, that he and his cousin, 5-star running back DeAndre Swift, might visit campus. They've talked about that. If they end up on campus, you know, you're looking again at 2 guys that seem to be a package deal. You might only have 2 spots left. You're looking at some other guys at different positions. Elijah Conleaf, the 4-star defensive tackle out of Virginia, is a guy who's going to decide sometime soon. You have Tariq Castro-Fields on campus this weekend. He's another guy that's just really someone they focused on for a long time now. He's the kid that really hasn't done a whole lot with his recruitment. He's visited Alabama. He's visited Maryland. Both official visits. Now it's time to visit Penn State officially. So we'll be on campus all weekend, Friday through Sunday. They get 48 hours with those kids. And it's Penn State's last shot. He's going to announce this January 23rd. Don't expect any commitment news this weekend. Even if Penn State is the pick, he's going to wait things out. So we'll have to see how things sort of play out with him. But again, when you look at what Penn State has left versus what it has space for, unless there's some unexpected decisions, you know, some guys transfer, maybe a new NFL declaration, which I don't think is going to happen now the class has started. That's extremely rare. So you're looking at, you know, maybe some transfers, maybe a guy or 2 ends up being injured and doesn't, you know, come back for the 2017 season. That might open up some space. But truth be told, this class is going to finish where they expected it to be, in the 18 to 21 range. Next class is going to be about the same. There's not really a lot of wiggle room to work with here. And I think that what it ultimately comes down to is that when you get to this point where you're Penn State and you were so senior depleted, at one point you graduated a bunch of seniors, that made you one of the youngest teams in college football. Now you're working your way back up, and that leaves you with small senior classes, small group of guys that can go on to the NFL and leave early as juniors. That changes, of course, next year. You'll see a bigger group, and things will start to get back on track. So we'll wait a few minutes here, keep chatting, see if you have any questions for us. You can leave them here. You can always check in with us at PennLive.com/penn-state-football. There's plenty of news and notes on the recruiting front, and also your questions taken, usually Monday from Bob Flounders. Dave Jones will be hopping in starting next week on Wednesday right here on Facebook, so you can keep an eye out for that. And we'll have a mailbag mailbag probably Thursdays going forward as well. So on the team front, Chris Godwin and Garrett Sickels are two guys we've talked about. They are moving on to the NFL draft. It makes sense for both of them, quite honestly. I think when you look at Chris Godwin and Joe Moorhead's offense, and you folks have seen it, you love what you see from Joe Moorhead's offense. You love what he's been able to do. You've also seen a lot of guys get involved. And at some point, you're only going to be as good and you're only going to go out on as high a note as the offense allows you to. So they went basically – and Chris Godwin's had 2 tremendous years. You're never going to get as good of a performance. It's very difficult to get as good of a performance as he had in the Rose Bowl. So I think it made sense for him to leave. The questions with him are, he needs to work on getting open. Speed can be improved. That's something he's going to work on while he's working towards the NFL, maybe more so than staying another year in school. So it made sense for him. Garrett Sickels is the same way. Production in Sean Spencer's rotation, it's always going to be capped in ways by the fact that they play so many guys. It's smart. It's worked the last 3 years since Sean Spencer got here with James Franklin and the rest of the guys from Vanderbilt. They've kept their starters fresh and had them ready to go in the fourth quarter. But obviously, when you don't play as many snaps as some guys from around the country, you're just not going to have the chance to get as many, statistics. And let's be honest, there were games where Penn State's defensive line, no matter who was on the field, just didn't really show up. When you look at the 3 games they lost, sack production was not there. Quarterback hurry production was sort of there, but not really. It's just going to be a long road, for anyone that plays defensive line, especially defensive end, to really get the stats part of what really catches people's eyes. Now, will Garrett Sickels test well? Yeah, I think he will. Will he eventually go up draft boards because of what he has on film that maybe people haven't looked at yet? Yeah, I think he will. But in terms of the stat department, I think it's going to be tough just because of how many guys they end up rotating in, how many guys that they use on a game-to-game basis. And ultimately, the calling card moment for Garrett Sickels was the Ohio State game, and he didn't play the first half. So I think that's sort of what that is going to come down to. So, all right, it's in about 7 minutes here. We'll, wait a few more minutes again for any questions or comments from you guys. It's Thursday. We're 20 days from National Signing Day. And another question we get a lot on the recruiting front is, when kids come to campus, what do they do? So we obviously, you have this weekend with Terry Castro Fields on campus. You will have a bunch of commitments on hand next weekend, January 20th, for sort of Penn State's big blowout weekend. They've had one of those every year since James Franklin got here, including his first year on campus, which was about as wild as a time as you can imagine. He was hired January 11th. He had his first big visit weekend a few weekends later, and then it was National Signing Day of his first season at Penn State. So this won't be quite as hectic. They've been planning for this one for quite some time. Guys will come in mostly on Friday. Some might have to wait till Saturday, but most of them, if not all of them, will come on Friday. They'll do some lunch. They'll get to hang out with guys on the current team. Dinner, hang out with guys on the current team. Saturday, they'll be more focused on position meetings. They'll be focused on sitting down with the coaches and talking about their future, maybe working on some uncommitted guys that shows up. You have lunch, dinner. James Franklin gives a presentation. There might be a sporting event or two going on in town that they'll take the kids to. And then they have the night to sort of check out, Penn State and hang out again with the current team. And Sunday they'll have brunch. They'll chat with James Franklin and their position coach, maybe the coordinator again, and be on their way. So that's generally how these things work. They're nice and structured. Penn State really has a group of ops people that most fans don't know about. Andy Frank and his team, Michael Hazel and his team, that those guys really know how to do these things right, and they've been able to sort of dial into exactly what kids are looking for when they come on these trips. So we do have a question from Jeff. Wants to know if Joey Julius will be asked to give up his scholarship. Well, he hasn't been awarded one yet. So that was one of the questions, going into this season, Jeff, was whether or not he would be able to, earn a scholarship. And he was not given one, at least not publicly. It's not been announced that he was put on scholarship. So at this point in time, we'll have to see how things play out with him. And when you talk about, the way the kickoff game worked, it sounded like he had some sort of injury in the Rose Bowl that didn't allow him to play. And I'll be quite honest with you, when you look at that game, I think he showed how important he is, because Tyler Davis, for as tremendous as he's been on, kicks, and as tremendous as he's been on field goals inside of 40 yards, he just hasn't been able to, he's not a long distance guy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a reason most of his field goals come within 40 yards or less. So, I think that Penn State obviously could have used Julius to pound the ball into the end zone more often than not on those kickoffs in the Rose Bowl, and I think that's why, you'll see him around next year. I don't have any reason at this point in time to think that he won't be around. So behind him, though, obviously you have Alex Barbier, the scholarship kicker from Georgia, who redshirted. He will be into the mix. There's no doubt about that. And that's sort of how things are shaking up there for special teams. So thanks for the question, Jeff. And thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week sometime. Dave Jones will check in Wednesday of next week. We might be on more often than that. We'll have to wait and see. But until next time, see you.